Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a journey into the single most complex object in the known universe. And yeah, it's sitting right inside your skull. So think of this as the user's guide to your brain you never knew you needed.
Let's just start with a number that is, well, it's pretty much impossible to wrap your head around. 100 billion. And no, that's not the number of stars in our galaxy. It's actually the number of specialized cells that are right now powering your every single thought, feeling, and action.
These tiny cells are called neurons. And you gotta understand, they are the fundamental building blocks of you. Seriously, they're like the microscopic architects of your consciousness, all your memories, and your entire personality. And just look at the incredible network they form. It is a system so unbelievably vast that a piece of your brain tissue, get this, the size of a single grain of sand, contains about 100,000 of these neurons. It really is a universe unto itself. Okay, so to understand the big picture, we have to start small. Let's meet the star of the show, the individual neuron. Because if we can figure out how just one of these things works, we can start to get a handle on how 100 billion of them work together to create, well, everything that is you.
So at its core, a neuron is really just a nerve cell. It's the microscopic messenger that lets your brain talk to your body and, just as important, talk to itself.
And what's so cool is that every part of a neuron has a very specific job. You see those branching bits, the dendrites? They're like little antennas, constantly listening for messages from other cells. That signal then travels down the long axon, which is the transmitter, and that fatty myelin sheath around it, it's crucial. It's basically insulation on a wire, and it lets that signal travel incredibly fast.
And this brings us to a really simple but super powerful rule. The flow of information in your brain isn't just random chaos. Nope, it's a one-way street. It comes in through the listening dendrites, goes to the cell, and goes out through the speaking axon. Always.
So how does one little neuron signal become part of a huge conversation? Well, that's where we get to the amazing electrochemical symphony that generates all of our thoughts, our actions, and even our moods. Okay, so it's a four-step process that happens in a flash. First, signals bombard the dendrites. If enough of those signals are go signals, the neuron hits a threshold and bam, it fires an electrical impulse. The key thing here is what's called the all or none rule. The neuron doesn't fire kind of weakly or really strongly. It's either on or it's off. There is no in-between.
Now, here's the tricky part. When that electrical signal gets to the end of the axon, it can't just jump to the next neuron. It has to cross this tiny gap. It's less than a millionth of an inch wide, and this gap is called the synapse. And to get across that gap, the message has to totally change its form.
To make that leap, the neuron releases these chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. They float across that tiny synapse and fit into receptors on the next neuron just like a key into a lock. And that's what passes the message along. And these chemicals are incredibly powerful. They're responsible for that feeling of well-being you get from serotonin or the motivation and focus that comes from a rush of dopamine.
So here it is. This is the fundamental process of all communication in your brain. It's a two-stage journey. An electrical signal zips down the axon, which then triggers a chemical leap across the synapse. Electrical, then chemical. And this whole process happens billions upon billions of times every single second. All right, so now that we've seen how these individual cells talk to each other, let's zoom out and look at the vast information highway they create, your entire nervous system. This massive network is basically split into two main parts. First, you've got the central nervous system. That's your brain and spinal cord. That's mission control. It's the decision maker. Then you have the peripheral nervous system, which is all the other nerves branching out through your body. They're like the scouts gathering information and the soldiers carrying out the orders. Now, within that peripheral system, there's this really fascinating division that controls all the stuff you don't consciously think about, like your heartbeat or your breathing.
This is your body's automatic pilot. Its official name is the autonomic nervous system, and it's this silent, tireless operator that's working behind the scenes right now, managing your internal organs and keeping you alive without you having to issue a single conscious command.
And you can think of this system as having two opposite settings. The sympathetic division, that's your body's accelerator. In a stressful situation, it floors it, triggering that fight or flight response. Your heart pounds, your palms get sweaty, your senses get super sharp.
Then, when the danger is gone, the parasympathetic division acts like the brake pedal. It calms everything back down, slows your heart rate, and basically tells your body, okay, we're safe now. Stand down.
So the big takeaway from all of this is that nothing that happens in your mind is just abstract. Every single emotion you feel, every memory you cherish, it is all rooted in the physical reality of this cellular machinery. It's the firing of electricity and the dance of chemicals across a synaptic gap.
And that, of course, leaves us with a pretty profound question to chew on. If the mind is simply what the brain does, if we are the product of all this amazing biology, then what does that say about our sense of self, about the very nature of who we are?